Welcome to the Sports on Tap NEO High School Football Show. Be sure to join the conversation by liking us on Facebook and following us on Twitter at SOT Podcast. Use the hashtag SOT HSF. Here are your hosts, Rob Troutman, Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick, and Sean Duffy.
Welcome to Sports on Tap. It's our Ohio High School football coverage here on Sports on Tap here on Mixler. I'm Rob Troutman. We have Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick, Sean Duffy, live from Studio J. Woo. And it's the first round of the playoffs. It's our game recaps here on Mixler. I want to thank everyone for listening. And if you're not listening live, this is archived also on our YouTube page. Go to sportsontappodcast.com. For more recaps. We have stories, videos, pictures. We're on Facebook, at SOT Podcast on Twitter as well. And, guys, Week 11 now in the books, and it seems like, the season's been going really quick. The playoffs are an absolute different beast than the regular season. For the SWC teams, there were 3 teams in. Obviously, there were only going to be possibly at the most 2 coming out. Could be 1. We'll give you the recaps of that, and also in the Division II, Region 6, what happened there. Josh in the Greater Cleveland Conference still has a team going. The Suburban League. Well, our game of the week was the Wadsworth Grizzlies as they took on the Worcester Generals. And, man, what a game that was.
It was a good game. I got all 10,000 of my steps in following that game. Literally following that game.
I was going to say that, seeing – and if you want to see some of the amazing highlights, I know Josh was uploading some video on our YouTube page, but go to sportsontappodcast.com and add SOT Podcast where Josh did a great job with the video and some of the hits, man, in that game.
Josh Jeffy should work for NFL Films because he got some of the best video I've seen around.
Yeah, it was –
And I watched a lot of the high school football coverage when I got back from the game, and they got some really nice. Josh was on the if Josh had that voice, what's that voice from NFL Films?
Oh,
today,
the frozen
wet tundra of
you
Wadsworth.
Have the music that goes with it too.
No, you can't. You have to pay like $1,000 every time.
So we'll just have Sean do his. Dun, 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 dun. It's close enough.
Okay, so I get sued. Great.
No, you were a little off in the tone, so it's not exactly the same song.
Oh, thanks, Simon
So
Cowell.
we can get away with it. But
I hated it.
Ed, what's one thing that you saw in the playoffs that either impressed you or stuck out?
Lots of scores going on. Lots of scoring in the first round of the playoffs, and really all the regions. And there are a lot of really good games. A lot of good games that our teams were involved with. There really weren't a whole lot of blowouts. If you look through a couple of the other regions, you did see where the cream definitely rise to the top there. But we'll get into the different regions: Division 1, Region 1, Division 2, Region 5, Division 2, Region 6, Division 2, Region 7, and Division 3 regions 9 and 12.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take a look at all of those.
Pretty impressive
come
right
up
there,
here
Ed.
today.
Good job.
He did that off the top of his head.
I know.
Amazing.
That's what's impressive.
That's why he's the stats man.
Yep.
He is.
The stats man.
Numbers.
But, Josh, you want to get into over there, you had how many games? You had, what, three teams in?
4 teams, actually. 2 of them from the GCC were playing each other, and that's where we'll get started. The number 1 seed in Division 1, Region 1, Menor hosted number 8 seeded in Division 1, Region 1, Strongsville. And this game saw the return of sophomore quarterback Ian Kipp, and he provided a nice spark for the Cardinals. In this game, he went 15 of 21 for 252 yards, and he scored twice. In fact, Menor scored touchdowns on 3 of their first 4 drives to start the game, and the last 2 scores were both were over 60 yards. So they really had the offense on a roll with some big plays. It was 28-0 at halftime. Strongsville came out with the ball to start the first half, and they had a big play of their own. Quarterback Tyler Wolters to Joe Gillette for 64 yards, touchdown, but that's the only points that they would put on the board. Mentor defensive back Noah Gladdick in this game had 2 pick sixes, and that's pretty much all the Cardinals needed as they rolled to a 35-7 victory. I believe the score was. If I have that wrong,
38.
38. Yes, I'm sorry about that. 38-7 victory over Strongsville. Strongsville obviously goes home for the year, but a very good year. They got into the playoffs, and that's a building step for them. Mentor will actually play host to number 5 seeded Camp McKinley at Brunswick Auto Mart Stadium coming up this week.
Yeah, great. Good season for Strongsville. It was the first time they had been in the playoffs since 2008. That year they had a pretty good run in the playoffs, but sophomore Ian Kipp is obviously a big difference maker, and he was afforded the last couple of weeks to make sure he got right and get ready for this playoff run that they're continuing to embark on.
The next team in the GCC played before mentioned the Canton McKinley. The Solon Comets actually suffered a tough defeat to the Canton McKinley Bulldogs. They lost this game 28-15. Solon was actually the number 4 seed in the tournament. In this bracket, Canton McKinley, again, is the 5th seed. This matchup pitted 2 great defenses. In fact, Solon held their teams this year, they played during the regular season, to an average of 14 points. Canton McKinley held the teams they played to an average of 18 points. And the Bulldogs did a great job holding Solon running back Khalil Eichelberger, to only 55 yards on 18 carries. He did have a touchdown in this game. However, Camp McKinley was led by running back Lemire Garrett. He had 30 carries, 115 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And quarterback for the Bulldogs, Elijah Curtis, 221 total yards, 2 touchdowns. With this performance, he went up to all the way number 2 all-time in Canton McKinley school history for passing yards. He's currently sitting at 4,085. So Canton McKinley has got a long, successful history in football. So that's a pretty big deal for him. As I mentioned before, with this victory, Canton McKinley will go on to take on Mentor this coming Friday, 7 p.m. at Brunswick Auto Mart Stadium. The final GCC team to be in the playoffs, it was number 3 seeded Euclid. They hosted number 6 seeded Austintown Fitch, and this game was all Euclid. They ended up winning 35-0.
Wow.
4 plays into the game, Brandon Wright scored on an 18-yard touchdown run. Sophomore Atiba Fitz, before they scored, he took the opening kickoff 85 yards for a touchdown, but the play was called back due to a penalty. But 4 plays later, Brandon Wright scored for Euclid. Quarterback Deion Valentine in this game, 7-12, 154 yards and a touchdown. He also had a receiving touchdown in this game. And the Michigan State recruit Brandon Wright in this game, 8 carries, 135 yards, 2 touchdowns. Euclid will actually play host to number 7 seeded St. Edwards, the Eagles on this one, and they will play this coming Friday at Byers Field in Parma. That game, it was a rematch of the Holy War, and St. Edwards got a little bit of revenge as they defeated number 2 seeded in the region, St. Ignatius, 21-19. So that wraps up pretty much the GCC in the playoffs. 2 teams still available, or two teams still in the playoff hunt, I should say.
Wow,
oh, man.
It's it's going downhill, buddy.
It's a Monday for sure. But at least I'm not running the show, actually.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, they would be another train wreck. But, yes, as I was saying, Division I, Region 1, there's 2 GCC teams left in it, Mentor and Euclid, and they both play Friday. And we'll be updating that.
Now, did Euclid, did they play St. Edward last year in the playoffs?
No, that was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
We were at that
covered
game.
that
2 years
game.
ago we were at that game. Euclid hung tough. St. Ed's was just, they were just a better team. And not to say that Euclid usually has a talent advantage when they play most teams. That most likely will not be the case here against St. Ed's. Just like in their game against St. Ignatius, and some two tough other battles that they had between Solon and Mentor over the course of the season. So we'll see if Coach Rotsky can push the proper buttons and get them over the hump against these parochial schools. He's talked about it over the course of the season, especially when they started out hot this year. The next step this program needs to take is being able to beat the parochial schools like St. Ed's and like St. Ignatius, which is exactly what Mentor has done.
Yeah.
So that's where he wants them to go.
Absolutely, and it maybe benefits Euclid a little bit. This is on a neutral site field for what it's worth. I think the last time they matched up when we were there, they were playing at
was at Lakewood
Stadium. Now again, they're playing in Parma at Byersfield, where St. Ignatius plays their home games. So you got to wonder, maybe some bad juju. They don't play well, but Euclid's got to come in and punch them in the mouth, and they got to do exactly what they did in the first week of the playoffs. They got to get out to a lead, and they got to put their foot on the gas early. They scored how many touchdowns in the first quarter alone, and then were able to coast on that. But you can't do that against a team like St. Ed's. They're too good. They're too talented all around the football. You have to maintain that pedal down mentality, and hopefully Coach Rotsky can, like you said, press those buttons and get it to where they understand that, and perhaps it's a lesson they could pull from a couple years back when they played a St. Ed's team. Not all the same players, but certainly the same type of situation. Win or go home.
They'll need to turn the ball over and possibly score some points off and create some extra possessions for their offense and keep that potent St. Ed's offense off the field.
Yeah.
So some keys to look for there as Euclid takes on St. Ed's. St. Ed's did play in Byersfield last week, so they're just returning to the same spot they played last week. Euclid will leave the friendly confines of Euclid Community Stadium, which is a beautiful stadium, by the way. Very, very nice. But they took care of business, and we got a 1-5 matchup and a 3-7 matchup left in Region 1, Division 1, Region 1. So good luck to the Greater Cleveland Conference teams.
Yeah, Mentor and Camp McKinley from Brunswick High School here, and St. Edward, again, versus Euclid. Those are going to be some great games to watch. And, again, St. Edward and Euclid will be at Parma Byersfield. All right, now we'll get into Division 2, and we'll go over some of the Southwestern Conference teams. Division 2, Region 6. And first give you the scores. It was number 8 Toledo St. John's. They were 7-3 coming in. They faced the number 1 seed Toledo Central Catholic, and Central Catholic won this one 35-0. And we've seen Toledo Central Catholic, very impressive. Always one of those football powerhouse schools.
That was another Week 10 rematch where Central Catholic won 27-0. So they decided to up the ante and go 35-0 in week in Week 11. And you're right, Rob. Toledo Central Catholic is a perennial powerhouse. Very, very tough team up in that area. And once they get to the playoffs, they're a very, very tough team to beat. The only game I've seen of them live was a John Hunick offensively led coach Maple Heights team that happened to have the speed and the athletes to beat them. So that was Central Catholic came out and punched them right in the mouth right away. But they at the time you had Shaq Washington, who was a junior, and Devontae Ransom and some other studs from Maple Heights who were just able to run right through and run around Central Catholic. But that was in 2009. 9 years later, that team is still cranking, and it proves by their undefeated season so far, the number 1 ranking, Division 2, Region 6.
Yeah, so Toledo Central Catholic with a 35-0 win over the number 8 Toledo St. John's Jesuit. Number 7, it was Valley Forge. They come in at 6-4. They made the playoffs on what was a great year for them. They faced a very tough White House Anthony Wayne, who was undefeated in this game, and Anthony Wayne wins 56-0 in this game. But take nothing away from Valley Forge. They had an absolute outstanding season. This was a team that, I guess going into this season, you look at and most years, Valley Forge has been down for a little bit, so you can almost say, that could be a win there. Not this season. They get 6 wins on the season, and they go out at 6-5.
Well, congratulations to Coach Marcello DeAngelis, a Mount Union guy. I had the pleasure of sharing the football field with him 1 or 2 seasons there, and he came back home and brought that program back to where he thought it needed to be. And their last playoff appearance was in 2002. So 16 years later, after he's gone on to playing at Mount Union and coaching where he's coached, comes back home and takes them to the playoffs. So as you said, nothing to take away. Unfortunately, White House Anthony Wayne is a powerhouse.
Yeah.
And there's only so much that the wing T triple option veer that Valley Forge runs can do against a team like that. So hats off to Coach DeAngelis and the Patriots.
So it would be Toledo Central Catholic, and they would play the winner of Avon Lake and Olmsted Falls, and the number 2 White House Anthony Wayne. They play the winner of Holland Springfield and Avon. And first, we'll start with the number 6 Blue Devils of Holland Springfield as they come in at 7-3, taking on the Avon Eagles at 9-1. And Holland Springfield, they're led by their quarterback AJ Gucciardo, and hopefully I didn't butcher that too bad. But wide receiver Devin Johnson is their wide receiver there, and he's a guy that will break the school receiving record eventually. He's only a junior, and Holland Springfield is pretty young. But for Avon, quarterback Ryan Malloy, he took a leadership role and got the Eagles back in the lead in the second quarter, or actually they were leading early and rolling into the second quarter as Nick Parasek had another big day for Avon. But the Blue Devils, they started the opening kickoff in this game with an onside kick, and they recovered it at midfield. And in 6 plays, the quarterback Gucciardo snuck it in from 1 yard out, and it was 7-0 Springfield Holland. And that's the way you want to start versus Avon, as they strike early. But then the next possession, the Eagles went 80 yards for a touchdown to tie the game at 7. They would score once more, hitting wide receiver Aaron Jones. He had 2 touchdowns in the game, and they went up 14-7 early. But the Blue Devils, they would tie it up on a 28-yard touchdown pass from quarterback A.J. Gucciardo to wide receiver Devin Johnson. The first quarter ended at a 14-14 tie, and you're looking at this game, you're saying the Eagles might be on the ropes against a very tough Holland Springfield team, but the Eagles, they would regroup and show their dominance in the second quarter as the defense forced 4 interceptions from the Blue Devils, quarterback Gucciardo, and a fumble recovery also by Avon, by Matt Steinmetz, their linebacker. Avon went on a 35-0 run in this game after that first quarter, thanks to running back Nick Parasek. He rushed for 208 yards on 18 carries and had 276 total yards. It was quarterback Ryan Malloy. He went 12 of 21 for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 3 rushing touchdowns in this game. And the Avon defense, give credit to them. They held Holland Springfield's 2 most important weapons of quarterback A.J. Gucciardo to 166 yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 interceptions on the night. And it was wide receiver Devin Johnson, who has had big play after big play this year, held to 4 catches for 95 yards. Avon gets a big win in Week 11, first round of the playoffs, 49-14 over the Holland Springfield Blue Devils there. Avon improves to 10-1 as Holland Springfield, they fall and end their season at 7-4 on the year. And guys, looking at Avon, I mean, their offensive weapons, getting Nick Parasek back, the running back, their offenses really took a big jump from him, and it's taken some pressure off of the quarterback Ryan Malloy.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see their one lone loss again. It came from Avon Lake early in the season. They've been able to string together a really good season of wins here, and that's a statement win from Avon. I mean, you want to take care of business. They did, convincing fashion, and now they move on to take on a very, very good Anthony Wayne, White House Anthony Wayne. Sorry. In a matchup, and again, what's nice about this particular region, it's all chalk. All the top seeds won. There's no real upset here, so we're getting the matchups I think that are would have been interesting.
Yeah, and in that game, it'll be number 2 White House Anthony Wayne. They're 11-0. They'll take on Avon at 10-1 at Clyde Robert J. Bishop Jr. Stadium. So Avon will take on an undefeated team, and that's going to be an absolute barn burner. That's going to be a tough game for Avon, especially, Anthony Wayne is always there. They're always tough. We'll see what they can do in Week 12 in the second round. All right, number 5, Olmsted Falls. They go on the road this time. At 8-2, taking on number 4 Avon Lake at 9-1. And could they beat Avon Lake for the second time? Avon Lake, they look to avenge their only loss this season to the Olmsted Falls Bulldogs. And Avon Lake, they would score first. And Ed would be happy with this. A 29-yard field goal started things off with Harry Hebert. It was 3-0 Shoreman. Then the Shoreman, they would score again thanks to running back Connor Riggs, scoring from 32 yards out. It was 10-0 Avon Lake, and, boy, they started off early and often. As the Shoreman, they weren't done scoring a 9-yard quarterback run by Jack Micklish. It was 17-0 Shoreman. But just when you thought that the Bulldogs would fall apart and that maybe Avon Lake would run away with it, it was Olmsted Falls. Before it got out of hand, they were looking to score before halftime, and they did respond on a 48-yard pitch and catch from quarterback Teddy Grzycki to running back Jack Spellacy, who we've said it 100 times this year. Yeah, he threw the hammer down on that one and scored. But, again, Connor Riggs, he would put the Shoreman back up by another score. It was 24-7 at one point. But the Bulldogs, right before half, Michael Howard would have a touchdown catch from 16 yards out. It was 24-15 at halftime. And then both teams, they would trade touchdowns. But Avon Lake, they eventually ran away with the lead, and they would end the Bulldogs season 44-28. As Olmsted Falls ends its season at 8-3 on the year, a very good season in what was a tough SWC battle this year that went all over the place with Avon Lake really and Avon at the top. Avon Lake continues their season at 10-1. In Olmsted Falls, they were led by quarterback Teddy Grzycki. He threw for 239 yards, 3 touchdowns. As running back Jack Spellacy, he ran for 104 yards and a touchdown. And Avon Lake, they were led once again by running back Connor Riggs. He rushed 30 times for 249 yards and 2 touchdowns. As now we have our matchup set as number 1, Toledo Central Catholic, undefeated at 11-0, will take on number 4, Avon Lake, the Shoreman, at 10-1, and that will be at Sandusky Perkins Firelands Regional Medical Center Stadium. Say that 10 times fast.
I cannot.
I don't even know where that's at.
We know it's in Sandusky.
But
yeah,
a lot of things are in Sandusky.
Sandusky Perkins,
in Sandusky.
right there. And number 2, Anthony Wayne, they'll take on Avon, and they're undefeated at 11-0. Avon 10-1, and that's at Clyde Robert J. Bishop Jr. Stadium. So the matchups for you there, and those should be some really good games. Central Catholic and Anthony Wayne, I think for SWC teams, that's going to be a tough matchup, I think, for both those guys.
Avon Lake's going to, they finally advanced past the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
For the first time in a little bit. So, instead of seeing a familiar foe that they have in the last couple of years, they get to see someone outside the conference. So they could work in both favors, really. They could work in the fact that Toledo Central Catholic hasn't seen Avon Lake yet. They obviously watched the film, but but Avon Lake, obviously, with the pedigree from Coach Kostelnik and a team that's finally that got over the hump of Olmsted Falls. That's been their Achilles heel in the playoffs. You have to figure they have not only do they have a sense of relief, but I was like, all right, now we got that game over with. What can we do next? And they certainly have the team to do it. And then you look at Avon; these guys are as experienced as it comes as far as the playoffs are concerned.
Yeah,
they've made deep runs habitually for the last couple of years. So a very, very tough White House Anthony Wayne team, as Sean talked about earlier, and that'll be a fantastic game out there in Clyde High School.
And going back to the Avon Lake Olmsted Falls game, I think when you look at that matchup, we always say the cliche: it's tough to beat a team twice in 1 year, but Avon Lake has lost to Olmsted Falls, like you mentioned, 5 straight times, whether it be playing on the regular season or in the playoffs. And Olmsted Falls came in there maybe with a lot of confidence, but from what Rob described, they turned the ball over 9 times. You can't do that against a team like Avon Lake and really expect to have any modicum of success. No matter how well your skill players are playing, you have to protect the ball, especially in the playoffs. And I think Avon Lake was able to take a lot of advantage of those turnovers and turn them into points, and that snowballed on top of itself. I don't necessarily see that happening against Toledo Central Catholic. Toledo Central Catholic is a very, very disciplined team. They've been that way all year. They're like that. They're in the playoffs for a reason. They get deep runs in the playoffs because of that fact. So Avon Lake's going to have to really play as solid on their side of the ball, protect the football, and maybe force them to make mistakes that Olmsted Falls may have made as well. So I'm interested. I'm more interested to see that matchup than I am the White House Anthony Wayne Avon matchup, just because Avon Lake, out of all four of these teams in this region, is kind of the wild card to me. They haven't really been this far in a while. This is a team that's kind of riding high, especially after beating a team that ruined their perfect season. They had a lot on the line. That added a little extra flavor to that week 1 playoff matchup, whereas this is more, okay, you need to take care of business. You need to go and get this so that way you can go to the regional finals and move on with the season. And, Toledo Central Catholic is not a team that you can just roll over. They have athletes all over the field. They do well. They're well coached. They're very, very well respected throughout the state. Their program does very well in the playoffs, so they're not shying away from the spotlight. So it'll be interesting to see how Avon Lake responds to being this far in the playoffs, having gotten over that proverbial hump of beating making it through the first round and beating an Olmsted Falls team that seemed to always be in their way.
Yeah, and I mean, this year, the SWC, I mean, it was fun to watch Avon. I mean, Avon lost Avon Lake early on, and they seemed to just get stronger after that loss. And Avon Lake, they still rebounded after an Olmsted Falls loss to continue to win. So what are they going to do against these teams out of conference that are very experienced and good? Now, like Ed said, Avon is really experienced. Coach Elder and that staff has done a great job. And Avon Lake, Coach Kostelnik has really turned that program around and done a very nice job. So it'll be fun to watch those two games. Good luck to the Southwestern Conference team, the Avon Eagles and the Avon Lake Shoremen. Good luck coming up this Friday. It'll be a lot of fun to see what happens there. But right now we'll step away. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little more playoff football as we come back to Ed Dick. He'll break it all down for us. And Sean Duffy over there on the other side. The compadres are waiting for us on the other side of the table. When we come back, we're Sports on Tap. Don't go anywhere.
Shows live on Mixer or join us the first Monday of every month at Z's Cream and Bean, located at 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley. Want to listen to past shows? Go to our YouTube page or website, www.sportsontappodcast.com.
SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the place to go where you can listen to past shows, read featured articles, check out all of our social media updates, plus much, much more. SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the official website of Sports on Tap.
For up-to-the-minute info on local high school sports action, including photos, videos, and live updates, be sure to follow Sports on Tap on Twitter, Instagram, and like us on Facebook.
RRT Productions, specializing in creating sports recruiting videos for all high school athletes. Want to play at the next level? Promote your talents with a video to send colleges. Affordable, experienced, and a high-quality video. Make us your local video production company. Visit our website, rrt-productions.com, and contact us today. RRT Productions, we shoot, we edit, you win. Listen to our shows live on Mixer or join us the first Monday of every month at Z's Cream and Bean, located at 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley. Want to listen to past shows? Go to our YouTube page or website, www.sportsontappodcast.com.
SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the place to go where you can listen to past shows, read featured articles, check out all of our social media updates, plus much, much more. SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the official website of Sports on Tap.
The biggest icon in wrestling.
Welcome back to Sports on Tap. It's our Week 11 game recaps.
Figured we keep up with the wrestling themes, and
I mean, why not?
That's actually fitting for these two that are coming
It
up
is.
next.
I know they were almost headbutting each other across the table. Tables were almost ready to get flipped.
What you gonna do, brother?
Oh yeah, dig it. That was Nacho Man. That wasn't NWO. Just for people out there.
He was in the NWO though.
Was
He
Macho
was.
Man at
Yeah,
one
he
point?
was.
Okay.
For a time
remember.
being.
I think at one
It
point
was-
everybody in the WCW was,
I was
in
going
the
to say,
NWO,
everybody wanted to
with
be
the
in it.
exception of Goldberg.
I just remember Nash and Razor Ramon, the big
Scott Hall then, Rob.
Ayo. Oh wait.
The bad guy.
Razor Ramon was still sweet with the gold chains. But let's move on to high school football, and Ed and Sean are waiting over there for more playoff action of Week 11. And guys, let's get right into it.
Yeah, we'll start with Division II, Region 5. We have one team from the Suburban League National Division in there. The number 3 seed Macedonian Odonia Knights. They took on the number 6 seed Painesville Riverside Beavers. We'll get to that matchup here in a second. We'll go quickly over the rest of the bracket. Number 1, three-time defending state champion Akron Archbishop Hoban, the number 1 seed by a wide margin. Defeated the number 8 seed 5-5 Mayfield 49-0. We talked about we may cover this a little bit later when we talk about Division II Region 7 about how competitive that region was. Due to some shifting and competitive balances this year, some teams that were normally in Division II Region 5 got moved over to Region 6 and Region 7 respectively, and some teams were the benefactors of that. Some teams were hurt by that. Medina Highland being one of them. Had they been in this region as they normally are, they would have qualified with no problems. I believe as the number 5 seed. But as it stands, actually, the disparity between these two teams is pretty large. Hoban had an average of 34.27 points according to JoeIdle.com. Mayfield had 10.1. A 5-5 team was able to make the playoffs in this specific region, but that's how things shake out sometimes. So Hoban takes care of business at home. They will take on the winner of number 4 seed Warren G. Harding, taking on undefeated independent Garfield Heights, the number 5 seed. Garfield Heights goes down to Warren G. Harding Mollenkopf Stadium. They get a 42-25 victory over the Raiders of Warren G. Harding. Big win for Garfield Heights. That's a huge accomplishment to go to that specific area. We've talked about that in the past, going down to the Warren, Youngstown, Austintown area. Not exactly where you want to go to play a playoff game. The crowds down there are raucous. It is a true Friday Night Lights feel down there. Garfield Heights undeterred. It justifies their undefeated season so far, and they get a 42-25 victory. So it will be the number 1 seed, Akron Archbishop Hoban, taking on Garfield Heights, a 1-5 matchup. That game will be played at Hudson High School Friday night at 7 p.m. Moving on to the other side of the bracket, the number 7 seed, Youngstown Boardman Spartans. Not big friends of they're not really big friends of any 3 of us at the table here, but nonetheless, they traveled up to Maple Heights to take on the Lake Erie League champion and undefeated Maple Heights Mustangs, led by 2010 state champion Jack Washington in a 2-7 matchup. They are all over the Spartans. They go on to a 42-12 victory. Maple Heights moves on. They are 11-0. They are the number 2 seed. They are moving on to Week 12. Brings us, finally, to the one game I get to cover. With 2-time defending Suburban National champion and two-time defending Suburban National champion and number 3 seeded Wadsworth hosting number 6 seeded Worcester in a Division II Region 7 matchup at our Game of the Week. The other playoff that I get to talk about, the Suburban National docket saw number 3 seeded Macedonia Nordonia, 9-1 overall, 6-1 in the conference. They hosted number 6 seed and Western Reserve Conference tri-champion Painesville Riverside, 8-2 overall, 6-1 in the Western Reserve Conference. This game was at Bullen Stadium in Macedonia. We saw Nordonia's high-scoring offense, but somewhat porous defense. We'll see how they will be put to test against the Beavers. Nordonia jumped out to a 21-7 lead behind the arms and legs of senior quarterback Robbie Levac. Riverside had no designs of going away. They kept chipping away at the lead with a powerful rushing attack. Quarterback Andrew Keller rushed for 2 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion. They cut the Knights' lead to 24-21 going to the fourth quarter. Nordonia and Riverside traded touchdowns, with Nordonia holding a 38-29 lead with 6 minutes left in the game. Keller hit wide receiver Michael Wachkowski for 2 touchdown receptions covering 53 and 22 yards, the latter being a 4th and 12 conversion with less than a minute left. Levac got the ball back, but a completed pass to Niles Beverly fell just short of a first down. Number 6 seed Painesville Riverside comes from behind, stuns the Nordonia Knights 43-38. Lots of offense and lots of stats to go in this game here. So for the game, despite the conditions, there were no turnovers and just 1 punt.
Wow.
Nordonia, they were able to convert on 5 of 6 fourth downs. Unfortunately, the one they missed was the one that unfortunately decided the game for them. Quarterback Robbie Levac, he finishes his record-setting career. He did break the record for all-time passing yards in Nordonia history last week. He did have 231 passing yards. He had 2 touchdowns to go with 87 rushing yards and a touchdown for the Knights. Wide receiver Julius Jones recorded 94 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Both Sal Perrine and Niles Beverly rushed for a touchdown for the Knights. Riverside, it was all about the rushing attack. 3 players exceeded 100 yards rushing. Quarterback Andrew Keller, he completed 7 of 13 passes for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also rushed for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. Danny Smith, he had 23 rushes, 132 yards and a touchdown. Joseph Robinson also had 23 rushes for 126 yards and a touchdown. With the win, The Beavers improved to 9-2 overall. They will face number 2 seeded and undefeated Maple Heights, who was a 42-12 winner over number 7 Youngstown Boardman. That game will be played Friday night at Mayfield High School. Nordonia finishes their season at 9-2.
Wow,
So,
what a game!
Closest game in that region.
Yeah, quite the barn burner going on there. You had two relatively evenly matched teams. Nordonia's their big loss. Their only loss was to was to Wadsworth, which we'll talk about here shortly. Painesville Riverside had their biggest win this year was against Chardon, I believe, and I admittedly I had some questions about how this match would go. In talking with someone who follows Nordonia at work, he was concerned about Nordonia's defense, and some of those fears came to fruition here. We saw a couple weeks ago when they won 63-50 over North Royalton, and where they were just able to outgun the Bears. And unfortunately, on this night, they were not able to do that against the Beavers. The Beavers accumulated just under 500 yards, but over almost 400 of them were all on the ground. So you knew what Painesville Riverside wanted to do. They wanted to keep Levac off the field, and despite doing that, they still gave up 38 points. And normally reliable kicker Evan Weehee, he did miss a field goal in the game, but as we saw by the final score, did not make up the final difference. But a tremendous season by the Knights. A big bounce-back year, especially the last couple of years where they didn't end up where they thought they would. This year they made major improvements. It's not going to be easy replacing someone like Levac and Julius Jones. Those two combined for a lot of touchdowns this year, and Levac was obviously the leading passer and the leading rusher this year. So a lot of offenses graduating from the Knights. But congratulations on their fantastic season, and we'll see what they can do next year. So moving on, so we'll quickly recap Division 5, or Division 2, Region 5 once again. Friday, November 9th, Akron Archbishop Hope, the number 1 seed, will face number 5 seed Garfield Heights. That is a battle of 2 undefeated teams. That game will be played at Hudson High School. Undefeated Maple Heights, the number 2 seed, will take on 9-2 Painesville Riverside, the number 6 seed. That game will be played at Mayfield High School. Any other thoughts about Division 2, Region 5?
Well, Nordonia had a great year. It's sad to see them go in the first round, especially with the season they had, and you know what kind of teams they played this year. I mean, it was a pretty tough schedule and a tough conference, especially their only loss to Wadsworth, which they played pretty well in that game. They only lost, I believe, by 10 points.
Yep.
And then to fall to Painesville Riverside, which they've obviously had a very good year, but we don't know some of the teams that they faced during the season. But like you said, the quarterback Levac, he's been the quarterback for 3 years now.
Yep.
And every year he's gotten better and really has led that offense. We knew Nordonia would put up some offensive numbers, and again, it always comes down to defense. But they had such a great year. And Maple Heights, how about that team? I mean, what a year they're having, and they're dominating teams. It's going to be fun to see what they can do against Painesville Riverside. And then the undefeated team, Garfield Heights, we've seen them this year. Athletic team, very, very quick on defense, and offensively they just know how to get it done fundamentally. But they're going to go up against Archbishop Hoban, who's going to be another team that's always there, and they're a veteran team that they continue to roll. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, you could argue that Hoban is the best team in the state of Ohio, regardless of division.
Yeah.
Until someone knocks them off.
Yep.
Pound for pound, they're one of the best teams in the state.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. So we will now move on to my cohort, my compadre, my colleague.
See, he's booing me because he knows what's about to happen. Zeke Elliott's about to run wild, brother.
Sean Duffy is going to take care of he's going to lead us into Division 2, Region 7 with the Suburban League American Division representation.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Ed. And first off, we'll start off recapping the top of the bracket in Division 2, Region 7. First off, we had number 1 seeded Massillon, Washington at 10-0, taking on 9-1 Columbus Walnut Ridge in the 8th seed. And it was all Massillon, Washington in this one, as they ended up winning 45-14. They move on to the semifinals where they will face the winner of the 8-2 Dover game versus the 9-1 Whitehall Yearling game. And this one was probably one of the closest in this division. On Friday night, Dover unfortunately drops a heartbreaker 38-31 to Whitehall Yearling. So in the top of the bracket, we have Massillon, Washington facing Whitehall Yearling in the semifinals. That game will be played at Mansfield Arlen Field Friday night at 7 p.m. Now, the bottom of the bracket has a little bit more to do with the show we do here. The very bottom of the bracket saw Wadsworth facing Worcester. We'll get to that in the next segment. But the game that I'm recapping for you now is Dresden Tri-Valley, reigning Division III runners-up from a year ago, come into Division II Region 7 and as a number 7 seed taking on number 2 Barberton, and it was the Scotties pulling off a major upset in the Division II Region 7 bracket as they were able to completely shut out and shut down the potent Barberton offense 10-0. This was a huge upset because, Barberton had been firing on all cylinders all year, putting up double-digit points and racking up yards in the case, but they were only held, in this case, the Scotties' defense came to play, holding Barberton to just 285 yards total on the night. They were able to force 3 turnovers, all of which were able to stifle any sort of playing or any sort of scoring opportunities. The only touchdown, in fact, came on a defensive interception of Magic's quarterback Chase Haywood by a Scotty defender who then took it 35 yards for a touchdown. They added a field goal to make the score 10-0. The Magics did have opportunities. They were stopped on 4th down late in the game, and they turned over on 4th down. And then again, the turnover bug it hit Barberton. They turned the ball over. We saw that in Olmsted Falls against Avon Lake. You cannot turn over the ball in this. There's no room for error in this particular issue. Nothing for the Magics to hang their head about. They went 10-0. They won the Suburban American Division. They have a lot of talent coming back. They have Kyrie Young. He did have 16 carries for 106 yards, but never found pay dirt. Barberton,
I think, too, the weather might have had a little bit to play because from what I saw in the video, the rain was really coming down there. But it's still, they both have to play
with a prolific runner that Kyrie Young is. I would have thought that would have been maybe played into Barberton's hands a little bit more, given the way that he's able to find that little crease and exploit it. But hats off to Tri-Valley. They went up a division. They knocked off a team that's been on a roll, and now they go on to play the winner of the Wadsworth-Worcester game, which we'll get to. Barberton, just to finish up, they finish 10-1 on the season. Again, there's a lot to look forward to with this Barberton Magics teams. They got a great prolific runner like Kyrie Young coming back, and they got a lot of returning players coming back, which should help them. I still would probably pick them and Aurora as my favorites in the American Division next year. Highland is a little bit of a question mark in there, but congratulations to the Magic. Great season. You can't fault it, but unfortunately Tri-Valley came in. They executed their defensive plan well and then, took care of it. So now we're going to move on. We're going to take a stroll down to the old Division III Region 9 where, Rob, I'm going to do the Buckeye recap. The Buckeye playoff recap is coming to you live from Studio J right now. Just making sure you're aware so you don't ask me again. The Alliance fake aviators rolled into Buckeye Bucks.
Whoa.
And Buckeye was able to get off the proverbial playoff schneid with a 28-25 victory over the Alliance fake aviators. Buckeye was led, as always, by Dom Monaco, who had 18 carries, 98 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Quarterback Jacob Durkee had a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown, including a 64-yard receiving touchdown that was the game winner to Anthony Watkins. Alliance had ended up taking a lead late in this game, in fact scoring back-to-back touchdowns, and were looking to salt away the game when Durkee ended up finding Watkins for a 64-yard touchdown. And the reason I stop on that is because as we follow the Buckeye Bucks and their good season, they barely have 64 yards passing total in a game. let alone a one play 64-yard passing touchdown. So congratulations to the Buckeye Bucks. It was emotional, definitely, for Coach Greg Dennison, who dedicated the win to all Buckeye football alums. Anybody who ever had anything to do with the Buckeye Bucks football team in past years, this was their first ever playoff victory in school history. So congratulations to Medina Buckeye. You got over one, but guess what? You got to go play next week, and they would end up playing I lost it. Hang on. They play Kenston in the semifinals in Division III Region 9. That's going to be at Bedford Bearcat Stadium at 7:00 on Friday. As we look at the Division III Region 9 breakdown, just to give you some quick scores here. The number 1 Canfield won over Marlington 35-10.
Not a good week. Not a good weekend for Alliance.
No,
there,
it's not a good weekend at all. Chardon ended up losing to Akron East 39-28. So Canfield will face Akron East at Ravenna High School on Friday night. As we mentioned, Medina Buckeye gets their first playoff win in school history over Alliance Fake Aviators. Oh, we got drops.
Nice. I like it.
And as mentioned, Chagrin Falls, Kenston.
Sean was a little thrown away by that one, weren't you?
I was not prepared for that. I thought I hit something.
Just so when you remind us, you did the Buckeye recap.
Oh, thank you,
Yeah.
Rob. Did the Buckeye recap? Chagrin Falls Kenston ended up beating Millersburg West Holmes 48-34, so they will take on Medina Buckeye, as mentioned, at Bedford Bearcat High School. In Region 12 news, my alma mater unfortunately dropped a tough loss at home to Hamilton Baden, 33-22. My dad actually attended that game because it was the first playoff game he'd had since my brother was a junior at Butler, and said it was pretty evident since the beginning that Baden was Butler hung around, but it wasn't exactly the best. It was clear by halftime that Baden was going to win that game, just the way they were moving the ball. On a personal note, I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the guys here to send prayers and condolences to an old coach of mine who did coach at the Vandalia Butler City Schools for 14 years and was a current member of the Marion local Maria Stein staff. Dan Toby died at 46 on Saturday due to a stage 3 biloma. I can't pronounce that. I'm told it was a brain tumor. He was my offensive coordinator all through high school, and he was a great guy, boundless energy. So my thoughts and prayers go out to his family. We're all pulling for you, and hopefully, you can get through this tough time. So, other than that, guys, I'm looking at this, and I don't know what to do next week because all I got is Buckeye. Rob, that's all I got to do.
Well, at least you can do the Buckeye recap. Are you going to do the Buckeye recap, by the way, or are we just going to keep playing that sound?
Well, Rob, what does that sound mean? It's the Buckeye recap. Yes, I'm actually really interested to see how Buckeye, that's an emotional victory for them.
Well, what's one thing you're looking forward to with this Buckeye game?
How they respond. How they respond, because they've never been this far. This is uncharted territory for them.
True.
They're only used to hosting playoff games and not making it into Week 12. It's very interesting because we see this sometimes with teams. Once they get that first win, they kind of get on a roll. They have an opportunity against a very, very good Kenston team. And Kenston's 9-1, same record as Medina Buckeye. I think this game it has the potential to be a kind of a good game for Medina Buckeye, because Medina Buckeye is a very much a control the clock type of team. They will run the ball. They'll milk the clock. They have no problem. They seem to be comfortable in the four. They can easily score, 42 points, 32 points, but they're also extremely comfortable in a 10-7 game late in the quarter because they know that they're methodical. They plod down the field. I look for a guy leadership like Dom Monaco and Jacob Durkee here, because one of the things that Coach Dennison said was they had to overcome a lot of hurdles this season. They got blown out by Revere in Week 1. They graduated 18 seniors the year before, and here they are, 9-1, first playoff, and they've been, and teams that were arguably more talented didn't even make it this far. So there's a lot of enthusiasm right now, but I think it's going to be incumbent on Coach Dennison to really rein in that team and say, hey, we haven't done anything. All we've done is move on to Week 12, where we need to take care of business going forward. Kenston's too good of a team for us to look past them and just be happy to be there. And I don't think Coach Dennison's going to let them celebrate that too much.
No, I mean, Coach Dennison has been in the playoffs for multiple years as the head coach of Wadsworth, and then defensive coordinator Luke Beal made the playoffs a couple of years at Brunswick as the head coach, and he had a lot of success in the playoffs at Fredericktown before his stint in Brunswick. So you have a lot of good coaching experience that passed this part of the playoffs. So I don't think that's going to be a problem for Buckeye to stay grounded, and I don't think they're going to come into this game just happy to be here. They're coming into a game against a Kenston team who has not made the playoffs since 2014 themselves. Mm-hmm. So none of the current players have playoff experience. Right. They came very, very close last year. They just missed the playoffs last year in 2017. They are the tri-champions of the Western Reserve Conference, along with Painesville, Riverside, and Chardon. Mm-hmm. And so they have played some good competition on their side. So it's just a matter. I mean, it's cliche, but you can't turn the ball over. If you can turn the other team over and get your offense some more opportunities and just play solid defense and just don't beat yourselves. Yeah. A lot of things, that's just the easiest thing to do. Don't beat yourselves. Focus and effort. Those are the things you can control. And, if you're not making stupid penalties, if you're not jumping off sides, if you're not holding, if you're not
turning the ball over.
Exactly. I think Buckeye has a pretty good shot here to continue this run. Up in the upper side of the bracket, you have the Akron City Series champion, the Akron East Dragons, against Canfield, the Canfield Cardinals. Canfield's been very, very solid all year. Yeah. Akron East makes it into Week 2 of the playoffs. I think that's gonna be. I think it'd be tough sledding for Akron East. Canfield is another one of those schools down by the Youngstown area that football is very, very important to that area. So. That'll be a good matchup there at Ravenna High School.
I would say, just to kind of carry on that point, Canfield is probably the most playoff experienced team.
Agreed.
In this bracket left. So if you're giving an edge to any team for experience wise, Canfield's a team that's been here, that's not afraid of this, or not afraid of it, but not unfamiliar to the spotlight here. Yep. Whereas maybe all three of the remaining teams, like you mentioned, for this class specifically, this may be the first time they've gotten this far, and I think that that particular situation bodes a little bit better for Medina Buckeye because of the way they play football, offensively and defensively. I think if they can start playing their game like you mentioned, clean, no turnovers, no dumb penalties, don't allow the moment to become bigger than what it is the football game. And again, if anyone can do it, again, Coach Beal's defense has been playing real well all year for Medina Buckeye. Coach Dennison's been dialing up the right plays. Dom Monaco has been the bell cow for that team. Armando Nye is going to be coming back for that game as well. They're going to have all weapons available, so hopefully we can see Medina Buckeye continue to ascend, because again, this is almost like a preview of what they're going to get when they move to the Great Lakes Conference next year. I mean, these are teams they're going to run into going forward. The caliber, Bay, Rocky River, Elyria Catholic. They're only going up in class, so now they need to be able to say, look, we're here, we're playing in this division, we can make some noise in this division, and we're not, we're not going to be the, for lack of a better term, we're not going to be the Rutgers of the new Great Lakes Conference. No offense to Rutgers, but win a game and talk to me. But yeah, congratulations to Medina Buckeye. Really looking forward to see how their team turns out. Again, congratulations on a great season to Barberton. They got snake bit by a team that is used to it. Division III state runners up. It's not like they're unfamiliar to the playoffs. They know what it takes to win. So, all they did was play a team with bigger student population, I guess, in that situation. So, but yeah, that's it for me.
All right, well, thanks for doing that, Sean.
Hey, did the Buckeye recap. Oh, come on!
Sorry, I don't have it all set up here. Sorry.
What kind of dog and pony show are we running here?
What we're going to do is Sean needs to regroup here.
I do?
He's running out of breath. And
I'm good.
He's sweating right now.
I sweat all the time. I'm a giant man.
We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about our game of the week, which featured the Worcester Generals traveling to Wadsworth to take
I'm going
on
to need
the
a break
Grizzlies.
for that one.
And also more playoff high school football. We'll tell you some of the matchups coming up here on Sports on Tap. Don't go anywhere.
Listen to our shows live on Mixer or join us the first Monday of every month at Z's Cream and Bean, located at 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley. Want to listen to past shows? Go to our YouTube page or website, www.sportsontappodcast.com.
SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the place to go where you can listen to past shows, read featured articles, check out all of our social media updates, plus much, much more. SportsOnTapPodcast.com, the official website of Sports on Tap.
For up-to-the-minute info on local high school sports action, including photos, videos, and live updates, be sure to follow Sports on Tap on Twitter, Instagram, and like us on Facebook.
RRT Productions, specializing in creating sports recruiting videos for all high school athletes. Want to play at the next level? Promote your talents with a video to send colleges. Affordable, experienced, and a high-quality video. Make us your local video production company. Visit our website, rrt-productions.com, and contact us today. RRT Productions, we shoot, we edit, you win.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, 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 money.
Dollar, dollar, dollar. Ching, ching, bling, bling, cut the chatter. You ain't talking money, then your talking don't matter. Ching, ching, bling, bling, patent pockets. We take the dollar, dollar, can of damn.
Welcome back to Sports on Tap.
Mean Streets, baby.
It's our Ohio High School playoff football coverage.
I
Week
like-
11 recap.
I like doing the wrestling themes because I surprise everyone to which one's coming out, and then some people shake their heads, some people love it.
I almost
It's
did
awesome.
the dance. I almost did the Shane O'Mac dance.
He did win the World Cup at Crown Jewel last Friday.
Yes,
He did?
Yes. He wasn't. Yeah, I know what you're asking. He was not originally in it, but somehow he won it. 'Cause that's what Shane O'Mac.
Oh, I know why.
'Cause that's what Shane O'Mac does.
I my son lost interest after the Miz match, so we stopped watching it.
Boo.
Yes.
All right, guys. If you want to follow Sports on Tap, it's at SOT Podcast on Twitter. Go to sportsontappodcast.com. get involved with the show. We archive all of these podcasts along with interviews and much more on our YouTube page. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and much more. So get involved with Sports on Tap. Now let's head it over to Ed Dick, where the Wadsworth Grizzlies had a little bit of a challenge against the Worcester Generals. And to me, it reminded me of a game they played earlier in the year. And Sean and Josh were there to see it. But
Indeed we were.
What a great game it was.
Well, it's a great atmosphere out in Wadsworth at Art Wright Stadium.
One of my favorites. I like going to games, cover games there. It's fun.
Did you guys end up having to park and go across the field again?
I got to ride a school bus for the first time in about 15 years.
Yeah, they were actually shuttling people from high schools. I actually learned from last year and actually parked on a side street.
Ah, yes.
And those side streets were not available to me when I drove through the city of Wadsworth because they were also having some sort of festival in the middle of the square. So
nice.
Wow.
They told me to just best to go to the high school and then ride a school bus over, and I said, why not?
Man, Sean Duffy taking the cheese. Glass of milk for him. It's fantastic.
Again, kids were picking on me. It was a whole thing.
Oh, man.
So the
Memories.
No kidding. This I
want to talk about.
This is the second year in a row that Sports on Tap has covered the Wadsworth home playoff game at Art Wright Stadium. This last year it was Wadsworth against Sylvania Northview. This year, the number 3 seeded Wadsworth Grizzlies, the two-time Suburban League National Division champions, hosted the number 6 Worcester Generals, coming into this contest at 8-2. This was a rematch of a Week 2 showdown. A come-from-behind victory by Wadsworth in that game. This game proved to be no different. The first quarter started with Worcester going 3-and-out. Wadsworth drove deep in General's territory. Trey Schaefer intercepted by Christian Scalf. Worcester then drove 89 yards for a score. 30-yard touchdown pass from Dylan Dagley to Zach Marinello. Worcester was up 7-0. Worcester's defense came to play in the first quarter. They held the Grizzlies on a 4th down attempt. They took over on their own 15-yard line as the quarter came to the end, and then a 7-0 lead going into the second quarter for Worcester. So unlike what we saw last year, Wadsworth got down behind by 2 quick scores by Sylvania Northview, and they had a little bit of trouble moving the ball early. And the same thing happened this time around.
Yeah, early in the game, Wadsworth was playing very well. They were between the 20s, but as soon as they got into that red zone or they were threatening, I don't know if they got tipped at the line. I asked Josh, and because he was in the back of the end zone because we assumed they were going to score. The ball had a weird flight path, and I don't know if it got tipped at the line or it just came off of Schaefer's hand wrong. But the way it kind of left his hand in the trajectory, it almost kind of fell into his lap, and they took over. And, of course, the Worcester fan base, who traveled really well for this game. I mean, they were loud all through the game. Lost their minds when that happened, when they intercepted the ball, and then they were able to turn that around and go dink and dunk down the field.
No, that's when we were at the game last year too. The Sylvania Northview team was fantastic as far as their crowd was concerned, and I think Worcester also knowing that they had them beat. They had them beaten the first time they played them, so they knew that this was going to be a very good matchup for them. And obviously they brought the fans with them.
Yeah, and they really did a good job of keeping their team in it when as we'll get to going forward. This game gets back and forth very quickly.
Worcester added to their lead. They had a 25-yard field goal from kicker Joe Stahl for a 10-0 lead with 11:15 remaining in the half. The Grizzlies get on the scoreboard with an 80-yard scoring drive. Running back Brock Snowball punches it in from 15 yards out. 10-7 Wadsworth trailing Worcester with 7:34 left in the half.
One thing I want to point out, one thing that I will point out that I mentioned several times to Josh Friday night was the kicker Joe Stahl. That kid has a leg.
Got a very powerful leg.
I mean, no kickoff was – I think there was one kickoff that was returned. I think that's just because he mishit it. I mean, he was kicking it out of the end zone, every one. And I was amazed. That's really the first kicker that I've seen this year that's been able to do that with consistency. And in the conditions, too, it was very, very impressive.
Yeah, anytime for that an offense needs to go 80 yards consistently to drive the field, that's a big help to the defense there. No matter how potent the offense is on the other side, and we obviously know the Wadsworth does have that. So after Snowball scored, Worcester responds with a 13-yard touchdown run by Trayvon Meese. 17-7 lead with 4:50 left in the half. And then Schaefer uncharacteristically threw another interception. Jet Morgan intercepts Schaefer, takes it back 35 yards for a touchdown. Worcester 24-7 with just over 4 minutes left in the first half. Unbelievable turn of events there.
Yeah, it was a kind of a bang play for that interception. I mean, he picked it off right about and just took it back, and I thought he was going to get tackled out of bounds, but he was able to keep himself in bounds and let the would-be tacklers over pursue, and he was able to get into the end zone. And that fired Worcester's sideline right up. I mean, they were on cloud nine at that point, because at that point they jumped out 24-7 lead. You think, oh no, and even I said to this, Josh, I'm like, they need to score. Wadsworth needs to score to just stay in this game. Otherwise, this could get ugly and fast.
And true to form, Wadsworth responds with 2 touchdowns before the half, a 16-yard run by running back Barrett Leibus and a 3-yard touchdown run by running back Dom Laparo, 24-21 Worcester at half. What did Wadsworth do? Did they do anything special? Like how were they able to get those 2 touchdowns in less than 5 minutes span?
They really just started utilizing their 3-headed monster of running backs that they have. It was one after another, and they were doing various option plays, a lot of men in motion, setting the running backs in motion once they were lined up as wide receivers. There was a bunch of different motions and formations that Wadsworth used, and they were really quick with getting the plays in. So they were really at a high up-tempo offense that really you could tell Worcester was kind of getting a little tired towards the end of the first half there, and Wadsworth just did a good job of utilizing their running backs.
And their last touchdown before the half was set up from an interception that they actually got as Worcester was driving. Some crazy guy left that out of the recap there. Really unprofessional. Probably should be fired. But no, and that was the one thing, is that Wadsworth scored, and Worcester kind of was responding at that point because they were driving into Wadsworth territory, and again, I don't know if it was tipped because I was on the other side of the field, but again, a wonky ball came out of the hand, and it just kind of fell in the lap, and they didn't get any return on it, but it really flipped the momentum, and then like Josh said, they were able to just pound the ball down the field. They used their timeouts really well. They were able to confuse the defense a little bit. I think maybe Worcester looked to be playing in a soft zone just because they were concerned. I don't know why, that Schaefer was going to go over the top of them, which left just running lanes for Snowball, running lanes for Laparo, and they were able to get in there. And then once they got into the red zone, they really used a lot of motion, as you mentioned, out of the backfield to kind of confuse whether or not Laparo or Snowball. And you could see that they were spying Brock Snowball because he wasn't as dynamic. He was still very good, but they were not going to let Brock Snowball beat them by himself. So they had whenever he motioned out, they had not only a corner, but they also peeked a linebacker over there. Sometimes a safety would shade that way just to make sure that there was extra coverage, because if what they were trying to do was get a lot of screens out to him so he had the ball in space and then he could make a move up front. They shut that down pretty well, but that also allowed Dom Laparo to just find open running lanes and just really take advantage of them in the set. And then again, that momentum going into halftime, they gave up. They kicked off, so they almost kind of got an extra possession there. So that helps too.
Yeah, and the Grizzlies took the ball from the third quarter kickoff, a 65-yard touchdown drive capped by 8-yard touchdown run by Dom Laparo, 28-24. Wadsworth takes their first lead of the game with 8:28 remaining in the third quarter. Worcester wasn't done, though. Quarterback Dylan Dagley scores from 8 yards out, puts the Generals back on top by a score of 31-28.
And this was the run that, in my opinion, was one of the hardest hits I've ever seen a quarterback lay on.
This was Josh's NFL films right here.
Yeah, he really had a nice hard run, bulldozed right into the defensive back, and basically laid him out for the touchdown. And it was loud. It was intense. And I had to watch the video many, many times because I thought it was awesome.
I mean, because we were surrounded by Wadsworth fans who were kind of circling everyone, and we were on the Worcester side, and there was an audible "ooh" from everybody watching when he got that corner stepped up, and kudos to him, he had the perfect position, but that quarterback was not being denied, and it was a great hit. And that's on our Twitter feed, so if you want to go watch that, it's a great run of it. I think Josh played with it for a good 15 minutes. We're gonna, maybe make it a highlight to slow motion, but it's one of the better runs I've seen.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone who on Twitter retweeted that or liked that, along with the other videos that we posted. We had a lot of good interactions from all the fans from this game. So real quick, I want to thank everyone for doing that as well.
Yeah. So after that,
that's a punishing,
demolishing run by Dagley. Grizzlies running back Don Laparo scored his third touchdown of the night, a 3-yard rush. The Grizzlies go back on top 35-31 with 3:33 left in the third quarter. Dagley, he wasn't done yet. He connected with wide receiver Zach Marinello for the second time. This one from 4 yards out. Worcester led 38-35 over the Grizzlies as the third quarter ended. And, you're starting to think, if you're Worcester, and especially, the sidelines and the fans, you're starting to think we might have a shot here.
Yeah, I would also say that it was apparent that defense in the third quarter was not. They were both teams were on the heels. There was not a defensive stop in the third quarter.
Yep.
Every offensive possession for each team went for not just points, touchdowns. So for every touchdown Wadsworth scored, Worcester came back and had an answer. So going into the fourth quarter, I looked at Josh and I'm like, if this keeps up, it's going to be 70-something or 60-something to 50-something. The way this had all the makings of a high-scoring game because it just looked like the defenses had not figured out how to adjust to whatever the adjustments were made at halftime. Worcester was having more success, I would say, with the passing game than Wadsworth was. Wadsworth was, they were passing the ball, but they weren't getting big chunk plays with it. They were getting a lot of big chunk plays with the run game, maybe a little bit of the screen game, but Worcester's was committed to throwing the ball downfield, and I think they liked the matchup they had on the outside, particularly with whoever was guarding Marinello, because he's a big target, big kid, and he was able to, and he had the surest hands. In fact, one of the guys on the Worcester side that said the couple passes he dropped in that playoff game were like the first passes he's dropped all year. So, he was a sure-handed guy every time, and a lot of those passes that he missed were just well defended. There was nothing really anymore you could say about that. So,
yeah, it's a Worcester 30-35 going into the fourth quarter. Wadsworth, they opened the fourth quarter with a 6-yard touchdown run from running back Mason McMillan. Wadsworth takes a 42-38 lead with 11 minutes left in the game. And at this point, you're probably thinking, all right, well, this final score is going to end up somewhere in the 50s and 60s. But at this point, the defense has really showed up to play. They had multiple 3-and-outs over the course of the following quarter. Then Worcester, they had an opportunity to win the game. They drove from their own 18-yard line. They go all the way down to the Wadsworth 6-yard line with just under a minute to go. The Grizzlies defense finally got to Dagley. They broke up three sure touchdown receptions in the end zone, and they didn't let Dagley get ahead of steam on this one. They sacked him on 4th and goal. Wadsworth comes away with a thrilling 42-38 victory over the Worcester Generals. They advance in Division II, Region 7.
Yeah, that last drive. Josh and I were standing in the end zone when they were on the 6, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but those passes the 3 passes that were thrown on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down, it was pure defensive plays that stopped them from being touchdowns.
Exactly. They receivers ran good routes. Defenders just made better plays to break up the passes.
The one I saw came right across my face in the back center of the end zone. Marinello had the ball, and the defenseman from Wadsworth literally got in there and just smacked it out of his hands. And I think he was taken aback, like he didn't know what happened. And then they tried a little screen pass that was knocked away too. It just seemed like Wadsworth was not going to be denied, and they weren't. And they were ended up. To stop a team in the playoff. That's exactly what you want. It coming down to a playoff for either team. It wasn't like it was a blowout. Worcester had an opportunity to win that game and walk off and win that game. They didn't make the plays. Wadsworth did. that was probably one of the funnest games I've covered in the playoffs in a long time. Usually we get like a game that's, kind of a back and forth, but not really. That was a fun game because it came down to the end. I thought it was going to be a shootout, a basketball game. It wasn't. And actually, as you mentioned, the defenses came to play. I found that Wadsworth in the fourth quarter, while I think they were playing zone a little bit to help with the pass coverage, they ended up playing man and putting a lot of pressure in the box and putting a lot of pressure on Dagley, who was running around and still making great throws on the run, but every time it was contested. There was somebody in his face. There was the defensive lineman was able to set the edge, so he couldn't get out and run the ball, so he had to throw it. And some of those catches were made, some of them weren't. Some of them were bad balls or rushed throws. I think Wadsworth's defensive effort in the second half did a really good job of containing Dagley, not letting him beat him with his feet, but also getting pressure on him and forcing some errant throws that either affected his timing or maybe affected the route of the receiver.
Yeah, and this was one of the probably one of the few games where Wadsworth did not have the best player on the field on their team. Last year they had Joey Boffman, who was the best player on the field for any game. He was the Mr. Ohio football. This year Dagley was the best player on the team. He is the Ohio Cardinal Conference Player of the Year. He was 25 of 37 for 378 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 18 carries for 27 yards and that rim rock
bone-crushing touchdown.
Yes. So he counted for over 400 yards just on his own. But not to be deterred, with Wadsworth, their passing attack took a major hit this year when Carson Risher was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
He got hurt midway through the season. He was Medina County's leading receiver up until that point. So, Coach Todd for Wadsworth had to rearrange some things, and that's when you saw what you saw in this game. Brock Snowball, 21 carries, 163 yards. And a touchdown. He had 2 catches for 49 yards. Then Dom Laparo, 18 carries, 124 and 2 touchdowns. He also had 4 receptions for 73 yards. Each of these guys had 200 yards either through the air or on the ground.
Right.
These two, but with Trey Schaefer, really became the focal point of the offense, and that's exactly what they need to do to survive and advance. And we'll see what they can do in Week 12
against Tri-Valley.
Yes, where they're head coached by former Elyria coach Kevin Fell. So he's got some big game experience coaching Elyria, and as Sean pointed out earlier, Dresden Tri-Valley is the defending. They were state runners up in Division III last year, so this is not they're used to this stage. Yeah. They're absolutely used to it. Wadsworth is trying to break the school record for most wins in a season. Right now they are tied with the record with 3 other squads, including last year's 2017 squad with 11 wins. They're going to try to get over that hump against a very, very tough Dresden Tri-Valley in Week 12. Once again, that game will be played at Dover.
Dover, yep. What was interesting and kind of what we talked about all night was, teams that turn the ball over tend to not recover from it most of the night, and This was a Wadsworth team that turned the ball over twice. One of those was a pick six. Actually, both of those turnovers resulted in touchdowns. They were still able to overcome it. I don't think they can have another game like that and get away with it against a team like Tri-Valley. The way that they were able to shut down and shut out Barberton, who's, again, as we mentioned, been putting up points left and right against everybody they play. So again, Tri-Valley's not intimidated by the best of the best in here in Division II, Region 7. They went up against it, and they, again, you want to say the weather factors. I have to say that they just played defense and showed them it showed them exactly how they got to the state finals last year in Division III, and they could probably do this. They aim to do the same thing in Division II. But I look for Wadsworth, I think, to play a little bit better. I like what they have going with Don Laparo. I really like watching Brock Snowball, the way they kind of move him around. He's not just a put your hand on the ground back and take the ball. He goes out to the side. He motions out. He can catch the ball. He can run in space. He's a brute. He's brutal to take down. The kid is just, it takes 2 or 3 people to take him down. That's what I noticed. Even when he was just running straight up the middle, it took 2 defensive linemen to drag him down. And that's something that in this part of the season that's beneficial, because if you're able to get 4 yards a carry, even to help your team out, you're on schedule there. You're able to kind of go to your other plays that may work a little bit better when it's 2nd and 4 versus 2nd and 9 or whatever. So, I wouldn't sleep on Brock Snowball in this matchup. I think he's the guy that Tri-Valley is going to probably try and focus on to stop. And again, if Dom Laparo has a game like he did last week, then Tri-Valley may be in trouble. You never know.
All right, well, so we'll quickly go around and recap what matchups are going on in our respective regions. Josh, Division I, Region 1, what do you got left?
We have Euclid. They will be traveling to Byers Field, and they will be taking on St. Ed's. And then the other GCC team will be Menor. They will be taking on the Camp McKinley Bulldogs. That will be at Brunswick Auto Mart Stadium. Looking to have both GCC teams in the regional final.
Rob, Division II, Region 6.
We have number 1 Toledo Central Catholic at 11-0, taking on the number 4 Avon Lake Shoreman at 10-1. This at Sandusky Perkins Firelands Regional Medical Center Stadium. And the other matchup, number 2 White House Anthony Wayne, 11-0. They take on the number 3 seed Avon Eagles at 10-1 at Clyde Robert J. Bishop Jr. Stadium. So 2 SWC teams playing there, and it's going to be a battle, no doubt about that.
All right, in Division II, Region 7, aforementioned Wadsworth Grizzlies, the number 3 seed, undefeated 11-0. They will play the number 7 seed Dresden Tri-Valley. They are 10-1. That game will be played at Dover Crater Stadium. The other matchup in that regional will be 11-0 Massillon, Washington, otherwise known as the Massillon, number 1 seed. They will take on number 5 seed Whitehall Yearling. And then finally, Division 3, Region 9.
Division 3, Region 9, we have Canfield, the number 1 seed, taking on Akron East, the number 5 seed. That game will be Friday night, 7 o'clock at Ravenna High School. And then Chagrin Falls Kenston takes on Medina Buckeye. Rob did the Buckeye recap, all taken care of, buddy, live from Studio J. 4. That game will be at Bedford Bearcat Stadium. And Friday also at 7 o'clock, Buckeye looking to continue their unprecedented playoff run in school history. Good luck to all the teams that are playing Friday night. We'll be sure to come back here Monday and recap everything. Buckeye recap.
Sorry, a little late on that one. A little late.
You know what?
No, I don't. Wait.
We have,
you know what?
We have a lot of fun with it, and I'm going to have to retire it because pulling the curtain a little bit, we may be following more than just Medina Buckeye. Pulling the curtain a tad bit.
Yeah, there's a small tease there.
Not big tease. I'm a big teaser.
Okay, well.
All right, on that note, guys, great job with Week 11. The first round of the playoffs is over. We'll look to Week 12. Any last thoughts before we close down the show and wish every team, coach, fan out there good luck for this Friday as they continue on in the high school football playoffs?
Indeed.
And I want to say one thing to all the schools. One thing before we leave.
One time.
What I was very, very what I noticed a lot about where we were standing Friday night was the Worcester, while happy, was respectful.
It's Worcester.
Worcester, whatever.
It's Worcester. I didn't want to correct you. The
That's
referee
fine.
was doing it too, and I could tell the people of
Worcester. The referee had a
Coming
problem with a lot of things that night.
I mean, coming from the guy who mispronounced Joe Itel's name multiple times on the air before being corrected, I know it's Worcester. That's why I just called it Worcester.
Yeah. Worcester, same diff. But I want to say that the student section was loud, was raucous, but they were respectful. I like that. Keep that going. There's no need to get, classless in the playoffs. Throwing that out there. Keep it classy, kids.
The more you know.
Mic drop. All right, guys, great job. Guys, we'll close it down. We're Sports on Tap. Follow us on at SOT Podcast. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Go to sportsontappodcast.com, our website. Go to YouTube, where we archive all these podcasts. For Eddie, Sean Duffy, Josh Effie, I'm Rob Troutman. We're Sports on Tap. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Good luck on Friday. We'll see you later.